I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg. 6 superheroes assembled to avenge their world against a cosmic threat of apocalyptic proportions. A team of superheroes as iconic as any in the history of comic books. With a legacy of big screen success for 2 of these characters and the looming shadow of Marvel Studios' non-stop box office juggernaut, Warner Bros. And DC decided it was their turn for a shared cinematic universe, but one not built on standalone franchises brought together for an event film. After a change in directors and a massive overhaul of the tone of the finished film, Justice League premiered to disappointing grosses and the disdain of many fans. But Justice League is far from the debacle many of you want to believe, especially those holding out hope for a certain cut of the film. In fact, Justice League is a really fun movie that should have marked the start of something for DC and not the end. I'm Alex Mady, and welcome to the Unpopular Opinion. When Christopher Nolan and David Goyer were wrapping The Dark Knight Rises, they came up with an idea for presenting Superman in a modern context. With the hiring of Zack Snyder and the casting of Henry Cavill, expectations were at an all-time high for this contemporary take. Then, shit blew up, literally. The catastrophic and 9/11-esque destruction of Metropolis at the end of Man of Steel resulted in a shift of direction for Snyder's sequel, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. The excitement we all felt knowing we would finally see DC's most famous heroes face off on the big screen was quickly dampened when Ben Affleck was cast as Bruce Wayne. While I always liked the choice and knew Affleck could pull it off, just like every Batman cast before him, fans were not in agreement with the choice. As we soon learned when the film was released, along with the equally despised casting of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, the finished product was squarely Zack Snyder's vision for a darker universe than what the folks over at Disney were releasing via Marvel Studios. With Batman vs. Superman a disappointment, even though it did gross $873 million globally, the already in development Justice League was bound to get blowback. Zack Snyder was already ensconced in making a film his way, one that would have seen the eventual introduction of Darkseid, DC's biggest intergalactic bad guy. With Suicide Squad already filmed and released months after Batman vs. Superman, that left Wonder Woman as the sole DC Extended Universe film before Justice League. Of course, that movie was visually distinct from the look of Snyder's films or Suicide Squad helmer David Ayer, and went on to be an unprecedented smash hit. So what does a movie studio do when faced with a financial decision to err on the side of caution and try to Marvel shit up, or stick with an uncompromising vision? Enter Joss Whedon. The filmmaker who created the Avengers replaced Zack Snyder, who left due to a personal tragedy. It seemed like the most logical choice from an executive standpoint. Bring in the man who helped make Marvel Studios' universe what it is, and see if he could do the same for DC. Several script revisions, reshoots, and mustache-related CGI later, Justice League was ready. No longer the massive first part of an announced 2-film story, Justice League was now a slimmed-down blockbuster with a 2-hour runtime, far less bloated than either of Snyder's films. Many specifically blame Whedon for the failure of Justice League, both from a critically and commercial standpoint. Complaints were made that it ignored the intended tone of Snyder's films and was just too damn Marvel-y.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
In fact, I found Justice League to be a lot of fun. As the guy who really did not like the first Avengers, Justice League felt like the boost that DC films needed if they intended to create a shared universe. Fun, full of quips, and not too serious, it is a movie that you can enjoy without having to weigh the lofty philosophical ideas that Zack Snyder's films delivered with minimal humor. Now, not all movies have to follow the Marvel formula, and Justice League certainly doesn't obey it wholeheartedly, but it does work in taking the grimness down a notch and letting us once again have fun with these characters. In Batman vs. Superman, both Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne were caught in the moral quandaries of what happened during the fight between Superman and General Zod in Man of Steel. Batman's xenophobia was allayed when he learned that the Martha connection existed, which turned his perspective on Supes completely around. Here, Batman is a stoic hero past his prime who needs to set up the next generation of crime fighters who will eventually take his place. Ben Affleck brilliantly portrays his Bruce Wayne as a man coming to terms with his own mortality. Recognizing what Superman represents, this Batman is still learning how to be a team player while surrounded by a team infinitely more powerful than he is, yet dramatically more inexperienced. We have never seen a Batman like this before on screen, and it was a breath of fresh air after having already seen his origin on the screen twice before. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, who became a symbol as the first female superhero to headline her own film, here continues to show strength and leadership, almost more than Batman, as she helps form the titular Justice League. While she was coming to terms with her place in the human world in her solo film, Wonder Woman is older and wiser here. While the upcoming Wonder Woman 1984 will surely give us more insight into how Diana continued to grow into her persona, Justice League shows us a woman who has lived in our world for so long and knows the threat that Steppenwolf and the Mother Boxes represent. Like Thor in the Avengers films, Wonder Woman brings an ethereal quality to the team and can hold her own with anything they need to face, but she also recognizes the hesitancy in her colleagues, namely Cyborg. While Ray Fisher had many scenes cut from the final film, this take on Cyborg is one I greatly enjoyed. Questioning his own humanity after his father used the Mother Box to save his life, by the end of the movie he has a similar arc to Captain Marvel and has grown into his abilities, coming to terms with what was done to him. Fisher plays Cyborg in a relatively understated way that makes him fun to watch, but also leaves the door open to experience more in the future. At the same time, Ezra Miller's Barry Allen is the scene stealer of Justice League. Already a fan favorite thanks to the very fun CW series The Flash, this Barry Allen is played more as a nebbish young man who exists on the autism spectrum. Without making fun of those with Asperger's or similar diagnoses, Miller uses his comedic timing to make this Flash seem both lighthearted, but the most human of everyone on the team. In many ways, Barry has a similar relationship with Bruce Wayne as Peter Parker did with Tony Stark. The mentor-mentee dynamic set up in this film definitely would have been fun to explore in the future films, and even a team-up between Batman and the Flash could have been awesome. And of course, there is Jason Momoa as Aquaman. While it would not be until a year after Justice League that James Wan would show that Aquaman was more than a punchline from Entourage, here Momoa shows that the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Arthur Curry is not the only interpretation of DC's Atlantean monarch. Momoa's physical presence and a gruff demeanor has often been written off as the actor just being a slight variation of himself in real life, but it works. Aquaman is the most reluctant hero on the team, but when he's kicking ass, we the audience get to enjoy it as much as he does. Last but not least, we have Henry Cavill's Superman. No matter what anyone says about Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman, I truly applaud Cavill's take on the role. While both of the prior films give us a Superman finding the balance between his alter egos, his death and resurrection gave Warner Brothers the chance to finally bring some light into his eyes. Despite limited screen time and that painfully bad mustache CGI, Henry Cavill finally looks to be able to have fun playing Superman. From the credit scene race with the Flash, or his arrival in the final battle with Steppenwolf, Cavill looks to be more like Christopher Reeve than ever before, and it made me much more excited than ever to see his next standalone adventure. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the Schneider Cut. Producers of Justice League have long stated that Joss Whedon filmed less than 20% of the film, with the rest having been completed footage helmed by Zack Snyder. Snyder has taken to his Vero social media account to tease out clues and hints as to what his film would have been. And many in Hollywood have said that the Snyder Cut was assembled and screened. What level of completion that cut was in is unknown and likely did not have completed special effects, rendering it unreleasable. As Warner Brothers and DC prepare the next phase of their films, including Joker, The Batman, Birds of Prey, and more, the necessity of existing in a shared cinematic universe is no longer relevant. If Joker goes on to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards, that will without a doubt seal the fate of the DC extended universe. And, at the end of the day, that will be the biggest tragedy of all. Whether or not a Snyder Cut ever sees the light of day is a moot point, because the Justice League we got is the only movie that matters. It may not be the film that audiences all wanted, but that doesn't mean it isn't a fun movie. Justice League is a movie that serves as a wide-open introduction to these DC characters, the vast majority of whom we had never seen on the big screen before. When compared to Marvel Studios, it's easy to write this movie off as a failure. The only mistake that I find with Justice League is that it in any way discounts Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman, as Warner Brothers continue to try course-correcting midstream. Is it an uneven film? Yes. Could it have been handled better if it had been left alone and released as Zack Snyder had originally intended? We may never know. But just because Snyder's Cut exists does not mean that it is better. Different, yes, but that does not mean superior. The Justice League we do have is a visually stunning achievement that showcases what DC Comics has to offer, and it is more than enough to go up against what Marvel Studios is capable of. But hey, that's just my unpopular opinion. Tell us yours in the comments below. I'm Alex Mady with JoBlo.com.